pick out things that you do, or I did, but such as work parties to get out of having to stand in line, and never did get seasick. Yeah, I did get upset one time. You know, I guess there's 4,000 men in there, three, or I don't know, it's crowded. Whatever. Well, I was down almost at the bottom of the deal, and it was hot as the devil. Well, they had cooler ducts all the way around, and I was sleeping by one, and I took my knife and cut a little hole so I get some fresh air coming out of it, because it just stunk like heck in there. Anyway, we hit a storm, and you know, we went to eat. The food was just sliding. The ship was just going like that way. I was laying in bed, and I decided to get up and go outside. The guy upstairs, the bunk above me, was sick and irped and burnt all over my face. And I did get a little upset. I couldn't get rid of that smell for weeks. But it just everyday activities, I guess you'd think. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can think of things like that as you go along, but whether it's of interest, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of people like my generation or younger that don't have any idea about what it would be like to be on a ship with 1,000 other people.
Oh, man.
You know, so that's why I asked that question, to get a little more idea about what that was like.
Well, it wasn't the best, but I didn't know any better. So
Okay. That phone.
I hope I'm giving you some good information, honey.
You are. Let's wait a second.
I think last night we had some discussion. My grandson kidding me about the Army and this, about as close to. I never discussed it.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, when I first got out, I used to have my nightmares real bad.
Yeah. I would imagine so.
Yeah. So.
I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah. In fact, Richard, my older brother, and I slept in the same room, and he always had to stop at the door, and he'd go. And when I got home, I didn't want to go anyplace. I was just staying home, and he'd come in and had a knock on the door before he'd come into the room, because if he come in and surprised me, you know, I'd just fall apart.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's hard. How you doing, Ernest, there?
We're rolling.
Okay. So we were talking about your experience on the ship as you were going down. So was you ended up landing at Guadalcanal? That's where the ship ended.
That's where I landed. Yes.
That's where you landed. Can you describe when you came to Guadalcanal what you saw and what you experienced there?
Well, when we got there, of course, they had disembarked. We got off. Well, they had trucks there for us, and so the truck took us out about 15 miles. The air base there was called Henderson Field, and so they took us out about 15 miles, which then we got acquainted with where we belonged and where we were, you know, and that was the first 155s, and so we had our maneuvers and our going out on fire missions and what have you with the deal, and then we had to go on work parties every now and then, you know. We get ready to go on the campaign while we had to go and load up the ships with whatever.
Okay. Let's pause for a minute. It is pretty loud, isn't it?
Serious business.
Okay. Tell me about, you mentioned the fire missions. Can you describe that, what that was like?
Well, fire missions is, you know, we set up communication. This is where my communication come in. Double E telephone field, and we'd run a line from one company to the other, you know, on the coconut trees and what have you. And so they would set up, the guns would set up, and then our deal was sort of a guard, so to speak, for the enemy and what have you. But they would practice. One gun would fire at a certain point, and until they got a pinpoint, and they had their figures and what have you. After they hit their point with this one single gun, then they would have all four. There's four guns to a battery. There's the howitzer, and then there's the long rifles. And so when the one rifle or howitzer would come within the point of the enemy camp or whatever, then they would open up with all four. And then, of course, that way they wouldn't be wasting a lot of ammunition. But that's where the kids they had their own tent like this, doing all their calculating and what have you, and they'd call it a fire mission. So they'd say, a fire mission or what have you. Which I can tell you a story about this. This is in New Zealand. While I was there, we had a New Zealand R&R after Guam. Went there, and we went from Guadalcanal, which was Guam and Guadalcanal, which was equator, hotter than the devil, and went to New Zealand, which was the middle of winter, cold, snow drifts this high, just we'd freeze. We went on a call a fire mission, and I got so bad in my throat I couldn't hardly talk. And I was on guard, so this Jeep drove up, and it was a 2-star general. And so I stopped him, and saluted him, and I could just barely talk, and I apologized and said, we're having a fire mission, so you'll have to wait. And he said, son, what's the matter with you? I said, well, my chest, my throat, I can't hardly breathe. He said, do you have a phone in there in the tent? And I said, yes, sir. So he went in there, and he said, this is General so-and-so. He said, you got a boy up here sicker than a dog, and he says, I want somebody up here and get him to medication as quick as you can. So about 2 minutes, ambulance drove up, and they picked me up and gave me a shot of whiskey and took me to sick bay for 2 days. But that's called a fire mission, And you block the roads and what have you, because they'd be firing over the road, So
Okay.
those are fire missions, yeah.
Okay. Now, when you went, what was happening in Guadalcanal when you guys came in to Guadalcanal? What was going on at the time?
What was going on where?
At Guadalcanal, when you came in, what was happening there?
When we first got there?
Yeah, what was happening? What was
Well,
going-
it was secured. The island was secure. However, there were stragglers of Japanese soldiers coming in and getting in chow line and stuff like that. So for our experience, we'd go out on excursions. Maybe there would be 10, 12, 15 of us. We'd take our regular gear, everything that you would have in combat, and we'd go out and go around the island, and see if we saw any activity or what have you. And spend maybe 1 or 2 days and then come back. And that's about what they would do. And it was training, teaching us, and it was jungle, a lot of mosquitoes there. In fact, I got malaria there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I got malaria, and then we run around in shorts there and went swimming and what have you until we'd have maybe a work party, which our outfit would volunteer. Our colonel didn't want us to lay around too long, so he'd have a work party. He'd send us out there to load ammunition or do this and that and what have you.
Okay.
I used to sneak off. There was a movie deal. The Seabees had a movie deal there, and we'd go there to work. Well, at movie, this other kid and I, we'd sneak off and go down there and watch the movies. Got caught. But things like that, you know.
Okay. How long were you in Guadalcanal?
Well, that was my main base.
Okay.
I got there in I forget what day it was, in July of '43. Well, I think we were aboard ship 26 days. I can't remember. And so that was our main base. From there, we would to go on a campaign, for instance, like Guam. Then we'd have to load our ship and what have you, go to Guam, and then when we secured the island, and then we come back to Guadalcanal. From there, they sent us on the R&R to New Zealand. We'd go down there.
Okay. Okay. Let's, sounds like your daughter's coming in there. Yeah.
Chandler?
Why don't we just pause for a minute?
What, honey?
Let's pause for a minute because I think your
Oh,
other
okay.
daughter's coming in.
All right. Okay.
And then I'm going to ask you about Guam after that.
Okay.
But we'll just wait a second.
Dad, I want you to be sure and tell him, I was telling her about when you were in the war, Tyrone Power.
About what?
About Tyrone Power, be sure,
Oh.
when you get to that point,
I
tell
was boot
about
camping
that.
with Tyrone Power. Real nice fella. Hi, honey.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hello. Come on in, you can sit right over there.
Janet, this is Ernest, he's the cameraman.
Oh, another
This
Ernest,
is
huh?
Janet.
And
this
another
is
Jean.
Jean.
Okay.
And she's the interviewer. Well, it's been so interesting, I've learned all kinds of things.
Since he keeps leaning forward, I might as well move it forward.
Okay. No,
That happens.
a few years.
Okay.
It's going.
Okay. So, Mr. Karkula, tell me about when you went to Guam. Tell me about your experience.
Well, of course, we ordered ship at the convoy. The convoy, I forget how many ships was in that, but we went and I think we were about 5 or 6 days or 7 days getting to Guam, and then we were out, I guess 4 or 5 miles from the island that day. And then that night, next morning, they had moved us within about a mile and a half the island. And that's when we boarded these beach crafts, what that you were talking
The landing
about.
craft?
Huh?
Landing craft?
Landing crafts. And it was still dark, it's just barely seeing. And we circled around out there for about an hour, and then a whole wave of us just went into all the landing craft and hit the island. Everybody, I guess about probably half a mile of the beachfront. Which reminds me, I have a picture, supposedly, do you have that, honey? After we hit the island, when we were in there, this fella come running out from the jungle, and some kids, supposedly he was the mayor of Guam.
I saw that picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real nice people. And, they, that was, at one time, that island was where the pirates, that's where they come in, and they had Japanese people there. And so the pirates integrated there with the deal, and they were Spaniards. So these people in Guam spoke Spanish, which I speak Spanish fluently. They talked about the problems they had there with the Japs and so on and so forth.
What kind of problems did they have?
Well, they had to hide out. The Japanese were pretty stern with them, just like the mayor, he and his family hid out for 2 years out there in the jungle,
Okay.
lived off in the jungle.
Now, when you came in on the landing craft, with all the other men that you, were you part of, you said, did you say you were part of the first wave?
I was the first wave, not part. I was the first wave. Yeah. Well, my bar, all these other guys, we all hit the beach, you know, and when you get there, they drop the front down, and boy, you take off, you know. And then we had to climb up a little embankment, went up, and then you took out across there. One thing they had stressed, they talked aboard ship. They said that they thought the Japanese were poisoning the water. So they said, be real careful about drinking the water too soon, because we don't know that the Japs have or haven't poisoned the water. But they gave us some pills. Said if you have to drink water from the stream, well, they put a couple of pills in your tin cup and let it dissolve and drink it. He said that offsets supposed poison. I don't know, but I liked my coffee even then, and I wanted a cup of coffee so bad, and it was hot as the devil there. I mean, it was really hot, and so I thought, well, I don't dare want to drink water and then drink, and if I drink coffee, then I'll run out of water. So I thought, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll just put this powder, and it was powdered coffee. And I put some in. I had never drank any of it. So I got about a third of my cup with my little water, and I thought, well, I'll just spare that much. So I put that package of powdered coffee in it, which made it strong, just like, you know, just strong as deal. But I drank it because I wanted coffee. Well, I suffered that evening. I'll tell you what. This Franco is a friend of mine. We went through boot camp together. He and I bivouacked together. That is, we used the same foxhole, and he'd stay awake part of the time, and then I'd stay awake because we didn't dare get up at night. You don't walk around. You stay in your hole. But I don't know if I need to get into this or not, but I was cramping real bad.
Yeah, that coffee doesn't,
Yeah, and so I'll never forget Frank was saying, he says, oh, Ernie, he said, Karkula, you can't go in. I said, well, I can't go out. I got to go. And he says, well, you're not going to go in the hole here with me. So I crawled out from under the tent, crawled and rolled over a ways. That's one of the deals that I remember. Oh, I was hurting so bad.
Oh.
and then it didn't rain that much in Guam, but like Okinawa. Okinawa was real bad. We slept in water, you know, but he and I bunked together. We went through boot camp. He was in platoon 21. I was in 19, or vice versa, and then of course we went through all this together, and then come back home together. And then I visited him in Houston. He lives in Houston, and I visited him 2 or 3 times. And then we had the other guy, Johnson, that lived in Chicago, and we'd get together and go down and see him. And then they come here a couple of times to see me, and we never. First thing they do is start laughing about that incident with that coffee.
Where was Franco from?
Huh?
Where was Franco from originally?
Houston, Texas.
Oh, from Houston.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, describe for me a little bit more what it was like to get off the landing craft and get onto the island, and then what you did after that.
Well, of course, when you get off the landing craft, when you're red diligent, you know, you're up and you don't know what you're going to run into, so you're very conscious of that, and so you know, you could hear shooting and what have you, but I never run into that situation. I guess I was lucky. I was BAR man, Um, Sometimes at night I'd have to fire into a deal, you know, if we thought that somebody thought they saw something out there. But you really didn't have too much time to think. You were busy, you know. I never, I don't know, it's funny. I never thought about getting shot. I really didn't. And my mother used to slaughter cattle for me every Sunday, so I think that's what did it. Yeah. But that's the deal. And then, of course, through the day, and then we didn't have, we weren't like the Army. We lived on hardtack. There'd be a little box like this, and you open it, peel it back. There's 2 pieces of candy, a piece of chocolate bar about that big, but as hard as a rock. That was our lunch. You know. So whenever they got a break and the wagon come out, or they brought us out something to eat, well, that was a treat, you know. In fact, I never saw an egg until this was in Guam. I was standing guard for the general. He had his tent up on top of the hill. Well, I was standing guard there, and I opened his refrigerator, and there's about two buckets of eggs. So I stole 2 of them. Next morning, when I got there, all my buddies around there we had 2 eggs, and we've got a helmet, and we cooked them. Everybody got a spoonful. And I thought, you guys, don't you tell on me, I'll be in the brig.
So
that was something else.
So you kind of missed having real food around, huh?
Huh?
You kind of missed having real food around?
Oh, yes. Yes, you know, you get used to it. Even at Guadalcanal, or even after the island was secure, we get foods. We call this, and if you'll pardon the expression, they call it shed on the shingle. Did you ever hear that expression? Well, I'll tell you what, that was a deal and the drink was lemonade, and it was just like battery acid. In fact, hardly the guys wouldn't drink it. We didn't drink it, you know, it was so strong. When they get through, there'd be some left, and they'd pour it on the floor, and they'd just sizzle and boil.
Wow.
But no, we didn't get the best of food in the line. Not like in boot camp.
Right. Now, how long did it take for Guam to be secured?
The island, what was it, 20? Not very long. Not very long. I'm trying to remember. It seemed like I said, we were either there 27 days, you know, and I can't remember how long it took us. It took us maybe a week, 10 days. I can't remember. Yeah, we didn't have that much resistance there.
Do you remember ever capturing anyone while you were on the island?
Capturing? No. No. I don't think the boys believed too much in taking that prisoner, unless it was just for information purpose, you know. Saw a lot of dead Japs. But
Do you have any specific memories that stand out in your mind about being on Guam?
do what?
Do you have any specific memories in your mind about being in Guam?
I still didn't understand that one.
Do you have any specific memories that kind of stand out about being in Guam?
Yeah, the people were very nice people, and beautiful country. The vegetation, I remember that, just like Okinawa. The vegetation, the green was just green, and red was just red, the flowers and all. It was just beautiful, you know. That was beautiful, man. And,
And can you describe, you know, if you were there for 10 days, can you describe kind of like what a typical day would have been for you with, you know, with the guys that you were with?
Well,